If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the origins, motives, and cultures of the 16 ghostly guilds in the world of darkness. This episode will focus on the Puppeteers Guild and their Puppetry Arcanos. Good grief! What sort of chaos has unfolded here? This place is a mess! Like a ball in a tire shop! So much damage and carnage in my base of operations! I cannot believe this has happened when I have my back turned! Oh, I am so sorry, dear explorer, but as you can see, I am a little preoccupied. Wait, what is that? What? It was this Christian! That risen! The balls on that man! What an infuriating... What's this? Where did you find these? You know what? Never mind. Let me see. Curious. Interesting. Yet highly disturbing. I shan't pry on your sources for now, but this Christian has support from the Puppeteers Guild. I shouldn't be surprised, given the relationship the Risen has with the Puppeteers. It just makes our work a little more difficult. No matter, with a cool, calmer head, we'll be able to work out our best means of attack. But as the team puts the base back together, I should probably tell you about the guild and their Puppetry Arcanos. It's a learning opportunity for you and a revision exercise for me, so at least some positivity can be brought from this situation. As the name would imply, the Puppetry Arcanos is the art of possession. If you research any cultures across the world, you will find stories about gods, demons, ghosts possessing poor, unfortunate souls, doing all manner of things. Within said stories, you are bound to find the puppeteers amongst them, much to the annoyance of Charon. Puppetry is seen as a forbidden art, as the interference with the quick is at its most obvious with this power. Only he and the Death Lords were allowed to use puppetry, then the hierarchy that would follow. Even then, it is on a strictly limited basis, in addition to encouraging a callous treatment of its consorts and the use of especially dark arts in order to maintain possession. Of course, that would not stop enthusiasts, for lack of a better phrase. Many within the guild want you to believe the Arcanos is all-encompassing, total domination of the mind, body, and soul. To an extent, this is true. The process of possession is known as skin riding, where a puppeteer can slip into the body of a mortal. Some can do this in the mind and the body of the host without them knowing, or claim the body as their own for about 2 weeks, kicking out the host's soul in the process. I wish to emphasize that these are quite powerful uses of puppetry, as most can only move a limb or make the host speak for a brief amount of time. The most well-versed of guild wraiths can control multiple hosts at once, though this can be particularly dangerous beyond the feeding of their shadow's angst. Wraiths can become trapped inside of their hosts or cause more involuntary actions than desired, leaving the mortal in quite the state. We have lost a couple of members from the Phoenix Institute this way. Hosts are usually mortal, but we are aware of some puppeteers, usually pertaining of the Puppeteers Guild, can do all these feats of animals, whilst some can heal their host of damage, may make adjustments to the heart rate, breathing, or blood pressure of a host, or even force them to go to unconscious states. The same also applies to some supernatural denizens that exist in the world, which I see has caught your immediate interest. Well, you can look into that sometime later, but I will share with you one little nugget. The puppeteers particularly like playing with vampires. A limiting factor some aspects of puppetry is preparing a consort, which we did talk about during a previous discussion regarding the proctors. The process is slightly different here, but attunement is achieved with the puppeteer skin riding a host for a considerable amount of time, through the time varies on a host in question. A total stranger would take more time than a close mortal friend, which would take much less time to a nemesis than it would take more time than hopping into the neighbor's cat. Puppeteers can can instinctively recognize when someone is being possessed and attuned in this manner. These signs can only be observed by wraiths, which are odd blurring or tearing of the mortal's aura, the mortal is seemingly immune to both death and life sight, the appearance of the skin-riding puppeteer's death and guild marks are presented as faint marks on the mortal's skin. And what are the guild marks of those well-versed in the Puppetry Arcanos? Well, it is said that many puppeteers belonging to the guild or just well-versed in the Arcanos of puppetry exhibit many stranger mannerisms and accents picked up from those they have skin-ridden, or unconscious mind you. We also observed that the corpus of each puppeteer gradually becomes a blend of their host's appearances, forming quite the average look overall, assuming they hop about in different bodies. If they prefer a certain class or type of person, their corpus undergoes a similar transformation, only with a class and/or racial bias. Now, should the puppeteer focus on more animal or non-human looking hosts, the corpus will begin to reflect the physical traits of those as well. Very spooky indeed, don't you think? Mysterious too, much like the rest of the guild in question. Like previous guild-based conversations, there is little we know of the puppeteer's early history. This is because, like so many others, the puppeteers were a solitary one, each member pursuing their own agenda among the quick. Some took the form of cult figureheads, others ocular voices and ancestral guides that would, in their own way, shepherd mortal herds however they pleased. As I mentioned previously, Charon had loathed this power for the direct influence it had over the mortals, and when he clamped down his laws, early puppeteers banded together for self-preservation, adopting guild structure to attain political power, deathering the hierarchy. However, some sources claim that Charon bound them together for the reason of protection from Stygian society. There are few among us who believe this to be genuinely wholesome motives of Charon, but you may believe what you will. Real formation and leadership came with the early arrival of an alleged lackey of Charon by the name of the Puppet Master, which is quite the egotistical name if I'd ever seen one. That said, he was supposed to be close allies with the Laughing Lady of the Penitent Legion, which really says it all. Through various rumours and protests against Charon, he would drum up support from the Puppeteers Guild, which we understand to be quite the shaky ownership at best. We know that they, like most of the guilds, did not approve of the power the Artificers Guild would accumulate and would fight with the other guilds. The puppeteers would not be as violent as some of their contemporaries. Many would hide in remote parts of Stygia and ask to carry on with their own objectives regarding the quick, which suited the guild just fine. However, there are some reports that we gathered that many were frustrated with the Puppet Master, how he was still very close to Charon, that maybe without his leadership, the war effort would have ended very differently. Many left to join their allies in the Monitors Guild in response to the Puppet Master's decision to let his guild essentially sit out the war. It would bite the Puppet Master in the backside when the revolt of the guilds occurred and the guild fought back against Charon and his forces. Many guilds reported on the puppeteer's betrayal, a coup within a coup as such. As we suspect, this sabotage was to try and keep a very dangerous guild in line, but it ultimately failed. Sure, it provided Charon with the perfect excuse to hunt down the puppeteers, but the Puppet Master mysteriously disappeared. If I were to make an educated guess as to what became to him, he was slain by Charon's hand for simultaneously failing and completing his objective. The puppeteers would scatter into reclusive groups, limiting themselves to protecting and exploiting specific mortal cultures. Many of their own members were destroyed, removing all pro-Charon, Puppet Master, or anyone they suspected as traitors. There are some cases, however, that they have also actively protected the quick during the Black Plague, as that was occurring during this time. They would possess doctors, move patients, and so forth. The guild would protest they were the only, or one of the only, guilds to help the mortals during this period. It was only the arrival of a renegade woman from Greece by the name of Marionette that resembled the guild and started to direct it with some semblance of leadership, sweeping through the ranks, who was meant to be something of a political mastermind as she gained allies and contacts aplenty. Marionette was guildmaster for about 200 years. It is said that she personally trained her successor, named the Marionette also, and gave them a white mask, traditions that have carried on since as the guild teeters on the verge of civil war, as some love the politics, the bridge between the heretics and renegades, whilst others do not, just wanting to continue their own work to weaken the Shroud and undermine the hierarchy. It is only in more recent years that leaders have brought the fragmented groups together, most of which are, according to our research, died in an era of global travel and telecommunication, making them more open to interacting with culture beyond those of their respective births. If we were to summarize the guild down in the most precise manner possible, they are a criminal guild simply because of their Arcanos focus. Many, if not most puppeteers, feel a great fondness for mortals, doing what they can to protect them and their homes, seeking peace over conflict. That said, they won't sit idly if they and when other raves try to bring about their death. They are naturally manipulative folks, just as many are the inverse, seeing the mortals as ripe fruit ready to be used however they please. These puppeteers, interestingly enough, are the closest to the renegades. However, the guild is very much the most renegade of the bunch, at least in the eyes of the hierarchy. They only are tolerated, the puppeteers, because of their association as the guild and nothing more. That said, our research does inform us that the puppeteers have found where renegades can be found, blending into the scenery, and not as loud and proactive as they carry out their tasks and perform favors. Why aren't they too loud? Probably due to their unique speech patterns, to put it politely. On the topic of alliances or contacts, which would probably be the better word, we know the puppeteers are the closest with the monitors, haunters, proctors, and spooks, as well as some heretic cults, the latter actively hiding puppeteers from potential enemies. Some puppeteers actively partake in these cults. They are the closest with the monitors, working in close tandem with each other. The puppeteers and pardoners, however, are not so close. Pardoners loathe the puppeteers and tend to feel that the angst puppeteers occur is well deserved. As a result, while pardoners will fulfill their bonds of their oath, the guilds are generally at each other's throats, forcing the puppeteers to actively seek out non-pardoner castigation whenever they can. And just to nail this hammer on the head, the puppeteers do not like the hierarchy. At all. Not one bit. However, we are aware of a curious relationship between them and the Grim Legion, mainly due to the fact they both had dealings with the Risen. During the Great War, there was an agreement between the two that if the puppeteers would work with the Grim Legion, the former would not hunt down the latter as every other legion was. The Smiling Lord would then reward the puppeteers' domains owned by the then traitorous Proctors Guild, traitors in the eyes of the Smiling Lord, that is. Simple stuff, really. Of course, we know that the Smiling Lord did win the Great War, so the puppeteers did not gain such a foothold, but there was plenty of Risen as a result. Whether this legion still exists today is unknown to us at the time. The guild lacks the formal structure and hierarchy of the guilds, including a total lack of formal initiation. It just requires you to have the aptitude and having the right friends. Of course, one has to have a deep and abiding mistrust of Charon and the hierarchy, contempt for the dictum mortem, and belief the proclamation of reason was issued under false pretenses. There is a test that must be passed, of course, which is to skin ride a mortal and do so without having any indication that something is awry. To say that these anti-Stygian raves make up the entirety of the puppeteers would be rather crass. Whether they are the most known for recruiting or rather collecting members from particular subcultures, some like to focus on other things within the guild. Puppeteers obviously depend heavily on their fetters. Those puppeteers who do become domen, raves that have no fetters, often retire to teaching. However, given their tight relationship with the Monitors Guild, puppeteers will often purchase new fetters in these situations. Most cities have at least one circle of puppeteer-led race that wants to no part of lofty agendas, still preferring to aid only its chosen mortals. But as for other factions within the guild, the marionette movement sees themselves as citizens of the world, aiming to step up the guild's coordination and mitigate wars that might threaten another great maelstrom. The Harlequins never forgot Charon's acts and maintains a centuries-old terror campaign against the hierarchy, exploiting mortal extremist groups to strike fetters. Conversely, silhouettes see puppetry as a means to transcendence through resolving fetters, sometimes approaching religious mania on the subject. As for the Risen, there is little I can offer here that we haven't discussed previously during our conversation regarding the Risen, back when this little Christian issue was an itch that needed to be stopped rather than a pustulating rash. The guild as a whole is actively dedicated to creating new Risen as a part of their general policy for overturning the shroud. To that end, the puppeteers will eagerly train wraiths to rise. There is a difference between eagerly and stupidly, however. Puppeteers see rising as a means of alerting the living to the dead's presence. They want anarchy, chaos, rampant destruction, all that yummy stuff for a price, that is. But why do the puppeteers do this at all? Why are they so obsessed with the Arcanos? Why are they so passionate about constantly breaking the dicta mortem? They do not seem to be inherently bad, right? Are they warranted of their criminal status? Perhaps, but what if I tell you, dear explorer, they just wish to feel again? Is that such a crime for a ghost to feel the warmth of their flesh and bone, or the intrusion in which they do is too much? You can brew on that for a while, because we have a Risen of our own to destroy, and I won't stop at anything until that bastard is obliterated. Come on, explorer, let's kick some Risen booty! To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.